Well, let's talk about that now with our guest in Cairo. Joining me via webcam is Dr. Hellyer, who's an Egypt specialist at the defence think tank RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute. Good afternoon. I mean, irrespective of whether the man really was wearing explosives around his belt, this is an extraordinary security lapse, isn't it?
Thank you very much. Well, I think we still need to wait for a few details to come out, which hopefully should be by the end of the day. Because as we know right now, somebody boarded a plane, that's not a security breach, claimed he had an explosive belt, and then the crew took action accordingly. Now, if it was explosive, if there was any chance that that could happen, then obviously that's a security breach. But if somebody approached the crew and said, "I have bomb," what are you going to do about it? I'm not surprised that they took him at his word. So I think that we do have to wait and see precisely what happened, and I'm sure the details will become quite clear by the end of the day, particularly as there's so much attention on this from the international press and particularly within Cyprus, because they're going to want to know what happened as well. And I think what's really important is for everybody to insist on a very transparent and very open investigation.
So if he was just bluffing, if he claimed he was wearing explosives but clearly wasn't, is your feeling then, from what we know so far, that actually there was nothing more the crew could do? They simply had to accede to his demands and take the plane to Larnaca?
Well, again, we're working off of speculation here. We do know that somebody boarded the plane. We now have the correct name. Obviously, the first thing that was released was incorrect, and that he threatened that he had explosives. I'm not sure that given that sort of situation, what the crew could have done other than take some sort of action. They could have refused, and then had he actually had explosive, he might have set them off. So I think that protocol in this case would have required caution. As far as we can see, and again, we're all speculating here, as far as we can see, they took a cautionary measure, which was to land, but land in Larnaca. And thankfully, the whole thing ended without too much of an incident. But I think we do need to wait and see precisely what happened, what was actually brought onto the plane, if the bringing of any of those materials on the plane was actually constituted a security breach or not, what happened to the air marshals that were on the plane, if they made the judgment call that, okay, better safe than sorry. We don't know. I think that we do have to wait and see until we have more details around that.
Of course. In more general terms, what is your assessment of, this was a domestic flight, or your assessment of safety generally now at Egypt's airports on their airlines?
So the reports that have come out over the past few months is that Egypt has been very concerned to upgrade airport security precisely because of the tourism situation and the Russian airliner going down last year. That's been very clear because they know that if they're not really 150% above spec, then there's no way that insurance companies are going to validate tour operators going to Egypt and so on. So that's been very, very clear. What hasn't, unfortunately, been clear is a transparent investigation and when it comes to the Russian airliner and other such issues. So there has been a great deal of concern internationally around that. This is why you see the travel advisory for tour operators still ongoing with regards to some European travel agencies, and also obviously from Russia itself. So I think that one of the reasons why so many are concerned that this points to a lapse of airport security is that the last time that there was some sort of lapse, which resulted obviously in the Russian airline going down, there wasn't a lot of transparency, there was a lot of confusion around it, and up until extremely recently, Cairo refused to confirm that it was actually a terrorist attack that brought down the Russian airliner. Whereas most of the international community confirmed that months ago. So I think that that's one reason why people are very concerned today around airport security. But given this particular case, given these particular circumstances, I think we do need to wait and see if the airport crew operated properly, and if aviation security within within Egypt, because this obviously took off from Borg Al Arab airport, was responsible for anything. As it stands right now, we simply don't know that, and we don't see the indications for that just yet.
All right, Dr. Hellyer, thank you very much from RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute.